He is Mr. Curran Bhatia. We got a standing 8-count segment coming your way. You know him as the host of the Ask the Experts podcast, and he's a former multiple Emmy Award winner at HBO Boxing. Curran, a big week of boxing. We were front row for Adam Kownacki's, I would say it was a shocking loss.
Absolutely shocking, but the Polish fans still came out in Barclays Center despite the coronavirus. There was over 8,000 strong at Barclays Center. It's good to see people still coming to boxing, and we'll see if that rings true coming up in Madison Square Garden. We have a couple fights coming up.
You're not going to hear any coronavirus jokes from me or Curran in this standing 8 count.
Put away the hand sanitizer?
Yes. Get your mind off of that. Keith Thurman, news, notes, rumors. It's coming up next. Curran, we were both live in attendance at the Barclays Center. Had really good seats ringside for Adam Kownacki versus Robert Helenius. We thought it was going to be Kownacki's big fight for him to move forward, but boxing plans, they're quickly derailed. Kownacki gets knocked out. Big time shocker, 20-1 favorite he was in this fight. Quickly, the next thing moves on to what is next for Adam Kownacki. I'll ask you right here.
I think there's a lot left for Adam Kownacki. I think this was the beginning, not the end. And what I mean by that is he's only 30 years old. That's very young for a heavyweight, right? Robert Helenius was 36 years old. He got the knockout. So I think what I said about Wilder is that when Wilder lost, right, this could be one of the best things that happened to him, because when a fighter, yes, they lose that O next to their name, but now it's time for some introspection, to look at your team, to make changes, to come back stronger, better than ever, to be outside of your comfort zone. And I think that's what's going to happen for Adam Kownacki. I think he can go back to the drawing board here, evaluate his training methods, his team that he's working with. He came in a little higher on weight than we've seen him before, so maybe he wants to work on training in that way. So I think that this will ultimately be a good thing, and I think there's a lot left for Adam Kownacki.
Right, you brought up Deontay Wilder, and he has that air of invincibility around him, and I think he lost that when he lost to Fury. His whole career was predicated on knocking dudes out and being the hardest puncher the heavyweight division has ever seen. That's not the case for Kownacki, and it's a big reason why I think that he can bounce back relatively quickly, is because he doesn't have an air of invincibility. He has an air of an overachiever, a fun fighter, a fan-friendly fighter that throws a lot of punches. He can quickly, maybe for his next fight, how about you get him out of Brooklyn for once? I know there's a lot of pressure on hometown fighters. There was 9,000 fans in the crowd at Barclays Center, all there for him. So I think that his next fight, maybe put it in Chicago, where there's a big, heavy Polish population there in Chicago, get a nice win, get back on track. Another thing, too, is he benefits Adam Kownacki from the recent string of losses from heavyweights. We've seen Deontay Wilder lose, we've seen Andy Ruiz lose, we've seen Anthony Joshua lose. If he was the first guy to lose and lose that O, maybe I'd be a little more concerned, but now we see a path. We've seen this. Everything in boxing is all about trends. So the fact that he has one loss now, not the worst thing in the world, because a lot of fighters have losses, and that's something that Kownacki even said in his post-fight presser.
You know who's had losses before? Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson.
Exactly.
A lot of great fighters have had losses. And if you look at Canelo Alvarez, right? He lost to Mayweather, and look at where he is at now. So I think it's our job as journalists, as fans, to say that undefeated record isn't as important as taking those big opportunities, taking those big fights, getting those big matchups. I think that's what's important. And I also think what's still on the table is that Andy Ruiz matchup. I still think that's going to be a great fight for Adam Kownacki. Maybe not next, but I'd like to still see that. Kownacki versus Ruiz. So I think there's a lot left.
Yeah, there's a lot of heavyweight division is exploding right now, and there's actually not that many viable opponents out there. So maybe we'll see Kownacki versus Ruiz.
Piggybacking off of topic 2, here's my question for you, Dan. We know Adam Kownacki had the opportunity to fight Anthony Joshua in June of 2019. It was short notice. He didn't take it. Andy Ruiz stepped in. We know Andy Ruiz won that fight. So, let me ask you this. Should fighters take that career-defining opportunity even if it's on short notice?
Right, it is a trend. We just talked about trends in boxing. This trend now, it seems like something that's a phenomenon. It's guys like Canelo Alvarez, the cash cows, Anthony Joshua, having fights where they need opponents and then throwing out offers, or maybe half offers, because I don't think Kownacki's was an actual offer according to him. But we saw with Caleb Plant, he was offered a fight with Canelo Alvarez, and he ultimately said no. Andy Ruiz was offered a fight with Anthony Joshua. He took it, and he ran with it, and now he's $20 million richer, and we see what it did for his career. Now, the case with Kownacki is, did he get that offer or not? Is it real or not? But ultimately, he did not take a fight. He had different plans, but going to your question, if it's a wise one to take a fight on short notice, a career-defining fight, man, I know we're supposed to give a definitive answer and we're supposed to go with it, but I'm going to be a little wish-washy here. here, I think it goes case by case. When you take a look at another guy, Sergey Kovalev, makes sense for him to take that fight with Canelo. He's 36 years old. He's cashing out. But a guy like Caleb Plant, I mean, he's got so many, options, and he's got so many his career ahead of him, and I don't know where to go with this. I feel like it goes case by case. I think Konaki should have took the Joshua fight. I think maybe Plant should have stick with his plan of moving up at how he wants. But it's just like you got to take that money. I can see both sides of it.
So I'm gonna play both sides of it, devil's advocate here. So let's say Adam Kovnowski took the Anthony Joshua fight on short notice, right? He wasn't prepared to have his full training camp, but the opportunity came calling. Then he fought Anthony Joshua and he got knocked out really bad, right? Maybe his chin was exposed, whatever. And then we'd be saying, wow, hey, Adam Kovnowski, you really were on pace to get your title shot. You should have stayed in line and built up to the big title opportunity that you were building towards, right? So that could have happened. So for me, I'm gonna have to also do a very polarizing answer of it depends, right? It depends. It's case by case. But in general, I do think that these opportunities don't come that often. And I think if you should set up your career as a fighter that if those opportunities come, you should be jumping at those, right? Yeah. So if you remember, Jaime Munguia at one point was offered Triple G. He's like, yes, I'll do it. And if you look at, we talked about Canelo Alvarez in the last topic. He was given the Mayweather opportunity at just 23 years old. He ended up losing that fight. You know what? He learned a lot from that loss, and now he's on top of our sport. Yeah. So I do think it depends, but in general, I think that fighters should try to take these career-defining opportunities if they are presented to them.
I'm changing my mind. I'm going, they should take them. Dare to be great, even though I hate that phrase in boxing. You take the fight, you take the money, and I think fight fans are very sophisticated fans, and they know if you go in there and you're giving us entertainment, you're giving us the fight that we want to see. I think everyone would like to see Caleb Plant fight Canelo Alvarez over BJ Saunders. You don't get knocked out from the first round. You don't get embarrassed. You put on a good performance. Fans will love it, and then you will get title shots because, let's be honest, title shots don't always come just because of rankings. They come because of popularity and what they think a fight can sell. So I'm changing my mind. Go for it. Dare to be great. Take a fight on short notice.
Well, you also have to look at, it's also kind of like a free roll, we call it, right? Because if you have the opportunity, and let's say you lose, right? Then you can at least say, hey, I didn't have my full training camp, right? It's almost like an inbuilt reason. So either way, if you get the win, that's great. And if you lose, you could say, hey, I didn't have my full training camp. What do you want me to do?
Sticking with the heavyweight division, Curran, it is hotter than ever, and it's going to dominate the first portion of this standing 8 count. Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, round 3 is on. This is actually round 3 of the standing 8 count. How do you like that? But they're going to be fighting each other, and we think July will have more on that later on in the show. But let's state a case for each guy. I don't expect much to change for Fury. I think all of this has to do with Deontay Wilder.
Well, here's the case for Fury, okay? Last time he got to the mountaintop, and we've talked about this a lot of times, he fought Vladimir Klitschko, and then he kind of went off the rails, right? Gained 400 pounds, was suicidal, had mental health issues. So Fury needs to be motivated, right, with a big prize to stay in training, to keep himself in line. Well, what is a bigger prize than beating Deontay Wilder again, right? Because someone could argue, okay, first fight was a draw, Fury won the second. There's still a little bit to be resolved there. And then Anthony Joshua, right? There's no bigger prize than a guy who has the other 3 belts, which would be the undisputed heavyweight championship plus the lineal championship plus 100,000 fans in a soccer stadium in Europe. I mean, there's no bigger prize than that. So the case for Fury is that the motivation is still there to be great.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And also I think having this fight quickly, or somewhat quickly, whether it's July or later, we'll touch on that later, is he doesn't have a chance to blow up, doesn't have a chance to not train, right? I think he already posted something where he's running and he's already back in the gym, and he's a guy that clearly has to stay on track in order to be successful. I don't think I think we should stop doubting Tyson Fury. I think he'll come out and fight the same exact way. But over to the Deontay Wilder, I think Deontay Wilder needs to just go in there and wing. Just throw crazy punches. Go back to the haymakers and the windmill punches that he was throwing early on in his career before he kind of refined it. And that whole thing of I only have to be perfect for 1 second, I think that has to go out the window as well. I think he needs to go in there and run at Tyson Fury. Just like Tyson Fury ran at Deontay Wilder, I think Wilder has to do the same thing. I don't think he can sit back and wait for that perfect shot anymore. That's why I think this third fight is intriguing. And I'm talking to a lot of people. It's like, I don't care about the third fight. How's it going to sell? I don't think so. I think this fight, they build up Deontay Wilder and they just talk about that right hand, how he can land it. And I expect Deontay Wilder, or I would implore him. I think he needs help training. Maybe I can get in there too. But I think they can implore him to throw heavy punches and go wild in there.
So here's the case for Deontay Wilder. First of all, I think you should stay away from that training camp.
Come on, I'm throwing my hat in the ring. Everyone is.
Here's the case for Deontay Wilder. He had his first loss. That really changed things. He had never lost in his entire career, right? He started boxing at 18. He's 34 years old now. Has never tasted defeat. So he's going to look at his trainers. He's going to make changes. There was rumors that he was going to work with Joe Goosen. I think that would have been a great addition. Joe Goosen now working with PULEV. So now it's Wilder has to find someone else. But making changes. I disagree in terms of coming at Fury in the third fight. I think what he has to do is the game plan that he had against Bermane Stiverne in their first fight, and that is work off the jab and move. I think we need to add more tools back into Deontay Wilder. We want to see that jab. We want to see a hook. We want to see movement. So that would be my case for Deontay Wilder.
I feel like he tried that, but also maybe get a new costume guy. I know you interviewed both those guys. Check that interview out. It's wild.
Round 4 on standing 8 count. We talked about Tyson Fury. So Tyson Fury says he has 2 more fights left in him. We know he's flirted with retirement before. So he also says a lot of things, right? Do we believe that Tyson Fury only has 2 more fights left?
Listen, I am done doubting Tyson Fury about anything he says. If he said he was going to show up here today in studio, I would believe him. I was on this very show years ago when he started his comeback trail and he was 400 pounds and he was posting those selfies saying, I'm going to come back. We laughed at him. I literally laughed at him on this show. I can go back and pull him up. I did not think he was going to come in at 270. I did not think he was going to take the fight to Deontay Wilder. He proved me wrong every single time, proved a lot of boxing fans wrong, so I will take him at his word that he's only going to fight 2 more times. He's going to fight Deontay Wilder, and he's going to fight Anthony Joshua. I actually believe that he would fight Anthony Joshua. I think that he'll find a way. I think ESPN and Matchroom will come together, Top Rank and Matchroom, and they will make that fight. I am done doubting Tyson Fury. I think we should all take him for his word, but then again, I could see him maybe retiring, doing another retirement, then coming back out. He's only 31 years old. But let's just take him for his word here. I think he's, shown that he's not lying.
Well, he also said he was going to try to knock out Deontay Wilder in 2 rounds, and he actually went for the knockout. He sprinted at him, and he knocked him down a couple times, and so he actually told us that was his game plan. I believe that he's going to fight 2 more times, and I don't believe that he would come out of retirement. And I think so in 2013, he tried retirement, actually, and he said that he went to the bar, he was drinking, he was doing drugs, he was doing everything, and it didn't satisfy him. And the reason it didn't satisfy him is because he knew he had more to achieve in the sport. Well, he achieved beating Vladimir Klitschko. Now he's achieved beating Deontay Wilder. If he fights 2 more times, we're thinking those fights are going to be Wilder and Joshua. However those fights go, right, there's probably not going to be that much more to achieve after that, especially if he wins both of those fights.
Right.
So I could see him riding off into the sunset at that point, trying to do something else. One thing that I think is huge is that he did a WWE fight. That seems like a very natural platform for him, for his persona, for his charisma. You can make a lot of money doing that, and it's not as risky as professional boxing.
Yeah, he can also stay in shape too. That's a big thing. He talked about training fighters. He talked about opening up his own heavyweight factory. He was on the Hot Boxing podcast with Mike Tyson, which if you haven't watched that, you have to watch that podcast. Watch it after you watch this one. Yes. But Tyson Fury has talked about opening up a camp. He wants to stay in boxing and somehow, but you're right. I don't see him as this long title reign where he's taking on up-and-comers. But who actually else is there left for him to fight? A Dillian White fight? I mean, you can kind of sell that. Maybe an Andy Ruiz fight if he stays on the winning track. But you're right. I think if he says, I'm going to do 2 fights and I'm going to be out, but you never know. You see guys come back all the time. I mean, he did it himself. If you say he wins his next 2 fights, he's going to be the only undefeated fighter left in the current crop, unless someone comes along like Daniel Dubois, keeps winning his fights. He's got to get past Joe Joyce. But it's interesting to see with Tyson Fury. I think he's the face of boxing, and I think that right now in the heavyweight division, I wouldn't want anyone else as the ambassador. Okay, Curran, there are a lot of fights on the boxing schedule that have not been finalized. We have one that is June 20th, heavyweight title fight, AJ versus Kubrat Pulev. We know that Kubrat Pulev has a new trainer. We learned it this weekend over on the Fox show. Mr. Joe Goosen will be in the corner of Pulev. The Denim Doctor is back. Will he make a difference in this fight? Because let's be honest, Pulev is staring at an uphill battle.
Joe Goosen, one of the best boxing minds in our sport, right? He's a great trainer, and he's going to be training Pulev for this huge Anthony Joshua test. Will it make a difference? Yes. Does that mean that Pulev's going to necessarily win? No. Because Anthony Joshua, this version of him, right? He's more technical now. He can move more, and he's going to open himself up less. But Joe Goosen being in anyone's corner is a good thing. He's almost resurrected Chris Arreola in a way you could say. Chris Arreola at 39 years old had a great fight with Adam Kovnowski where they landed heavyweight records tracked by CompuBox. I think you've heard of those guys. So I think Joe Goosen is going to be a great addition for PULEV, and it makes him dangerous because of what he's been able to do at the heavyweight level. Even though PULEV is 36 years old, I believe, 38 years old, that's still young for heavyweights, right? If you're in your 30s, you're still dangerous as a heavyweight.
Yeah, heavyweights age a lot better than other weights, but you're right. Goosen will come in. Will he make PULEV into a winner? Or remains to be seen. I don't think he'll be able to do that, but he makes the fight more interesting. Anytime Joe Goosen is involved with anything, whether it's broadcasting a fight or training a guy, I'm going to tune in because he has a great track record. You brought up Chris Arreola. Chris Arreola actually outthrew Adam Kovnowski in that fight. Look what he's done with Sergey Lipinets as of late, and you go back to what he's done in the early 2000s. The guy's track record speaks for itself in Joe Goosen. But one thing I think that he's going to do with this fight and with PULEV is turn him into a more offensive-minded fighter. That is Joe Goosen's calling card. Take a look at PULEV's punch stats. Only throws 40 punches around, underneath the heavyweight average of 46 thrown per round. He doesn't want to jack that number up. You want to get that number up into the 50s, maybe even into the 60s, because that is how you beat Anthony Joshua. This new Anthony Joshua 2.0 is with pressure and is with offense. So let's see if Goosen can implore that into PULEV's game.
I think it's unfortunate that Deontay Wilder wasn't able to bring into Joe Goosen into his camp, right? I think that would have been a huge
That was what we thought was going to be the announcement.
That's what we thought. We saw Joe Goosen ringside. We said, hey, are you working with a big heavyweight? He said, it's not who you think. And then, of course, he made the announcement. I think that would have been a huge chip for Wilder. I think that would have helped tremendously in the rematch. And if you look at changing trainers, right? Fury brought in Sugar Hill Stewart. That obviously helped him in the rematch. So I think it's a miss for Wilder that he didn't get Joe Goosen.
Yeah, actually, also thought it was going to be Ruiz. That's why I sent out a tweet early Saturday morning because we knew he was going to make some type of announcement. Goosen, I thought Ruiz and Goosen would be a perfect fit, but when I saw him ringside too before the fight went on, I said, "Is it Ruiz?" And he's like, "Andy Ruiz? No." So we know it's not going to be Atlas either because Teddy apparently hasn't talked to him in over 6 weeks. So Andy Ruiz does not have a trainer at the moment. We know that Kubrat Pulev does.
Round 6 here, and we are talking boxing rumors. So Pacquiao and Thurman, we know they had their great first fight. Pacquiao-Thurman 2, could it happen in July? Give me a percentage.
One good thing about going to these fights, being ringside, is you hear a lot of rumors. You brought up these rumors, and you hear people talking. You ask, hey, what have you heard about Pacquiao? What have you heard about Spence? What have you heard about Wilder Fury? Are these fights going to happen, and what's next? But one rumor I did hear, and I'm going to have to ask Keith Thurman on this when he joins us a little bit, is a rematch between Keith Thurman and Manny Pacquiao. I give this 40% chance of happening. I don't think it's 50-50. I think that Pacquiao has already gone over the mountain of Keith Thurman, doesn't want to stare down another big guy like that. I think he's going to fight Mikey Garcia.
I'm going to go a little lower on percentage. I'm going to say 20%. I think Thurman wants this fight, but I think Pacquiao is going to end up fighting Errol Spence or Danny Garcia. And I think the only way this happens, if maybe Garcia and Spence fight, then Pacquiao needs a dance partner.
Another rumor I heard this weekend in Brooklyn is that Mikey Garcia, now that Manny Pacquiao supposedly will be fighting someone not named him, Mikey Garcia, he's going to fight Terrence Crawford. That is a juicy rumor. What percentage would you give that one?
I'm going to say 80%.
Wow,
I know that's high,
high,
and I'll tell you why. I think it makes a lot of sense here. I think Terrence Crawford needs a dance partner. We know Mikey Garcia likes to take on these welterweight challenges, right? He likes the big challenge and the big fight, and the fact that a lot of networks and promotions are working together. They see what PBC and Top Rank did with Wilder Fury, and I think people want to make that happen and continue that trend. So I think it's going to happen.
I'm putting it at 20%, and I'm basing this off of an interview that Bob Arum did with our friend Marcos Villegas, the journalist, where he walked off the interview because he brought up Mikey Garcia, and Arum said, Mikey Garcia's contracts, his asking price, are ludicrous. And he got up and he literally walked off the set. So I can see Garcia asking for at least $7 million to fight Terrence Crawford, and Bob Arum ripping up the contract and throwing it in his face.
Wow, I felt like Bob Arum was in the room with us there. That was great.
I've done impressions of Arum before, and he does not like him.
No, he doesn't. So let's keep it going. So here's the next one for you. Next rumor, we know Wilder Fury 3 is going to happen. Wilder exercised the trilogy in the contract, and that was slated for July 18th. Is that going to get pushed to August or September?
100%. I'm going 100%, or maybe 99.9. I've said right from the start, I don't believe this fight's going to happen in July. I don't think Wilder has the time to do it, and I don't think that the pay-per-view can properly build itself, although I don't really think it needs a build after, 24 rounds, not 24 rounds, 19 rounds of action between the two guys. I think this fight ultimately happens in the fall. I think that the Fox and ESPN will put all their marketing between college football, NFL, and all that into a fall matchup. I think it's ultimately going to push back, and I have a very good source that tells me that.
Well, sources are always important. I'm going to say 95%. It's just based on the fact that it was such a brutal fight for Wilder. I don't think he's going to get back that early, and I think they'll be able to negotiate a little wiggle room there, and they'll push it back a little bit.
The horn just blew, but I want to get one last rumor in. I heard that Errol Spence's teeth is the last thing that's keep holding up him from a full recovery here. He's not sparring with Derek James. Another rumor that I heard, so keep an eye on that. That's why we haven't heard much on the Errol Spence front line. Another lightning round here. It's a shoe shine moment here on the standing 8 count, round 7. A lot of moving parts in boxing right now. A lot of fights being talked about that are not being finalized. I'm going to bounce some questions off of you right now. Canelo Saunders will be announced when?
I'm going to say in the next couple weeks, but I think it's going to be soon.
Really? You don't think this is going to happen this week? I know Coppinger reported it. Oscar De La Hoya put out a Instagram story or some type of thing saying, no, it's only going to come from me and not Mike Coppinger and his turtleneck.
There's something weird going on with this fight. Something's holding it up. Why hasn't it been announced fully yet? So I'm going to say a couple weeks. Andy Ruiz's next opponent will be who?
Chris Arreola. I don't think it's going to be Konaski. I don't think it's going to be Robert Helenius, because Helenius is going to want to wait to get that title shot because he is now the new WBA #1 contender. Bring up Chris Arreola. Do it in Southern California. A beatdown for Andy Ruiz, and Joe Goosen gets another payday.
I like that fight, but I still think it should be Adam Kovnowski. I think both guys, Kovnowski lost, Ruiz lost. I think let's throw him in there, and I think that'll be good for both fighters.
Another fight that hasn't been announced, and it's taking forever, is the one I want to see the most. Vasyl Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez. Bob Arum says it will not be announced this weekend when Top Rank puts on 2 cards in New York City Saturday night. Shakur Stevenson, Tuesday night, Mick Conlan. This fight happens before or after the May 30th, not before, but does this fight happen on May 30th or after?
I'm going to take May 30th. I think they'll figure it out. I know that they're still having issues, but Teofimo did tweet May 30th, the cryptic, the PP blank. So I think they'll get it done for May 30th.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fight that I talked to Teofimo, spent a lot of time with him in Vegas. His dad was with us, and he went up to his dad and was like, Dad, I don't know what's going on and it's last minute stuff. I think it's Lomachenko. Do you think it's Lomachenko holding it up? He's never fought in a pay-per-view before. Yeah,
I think it seems like Teofimo's ready and hungry, but Lomachenko maybe is holding it up a little bit. So let me ask you this last question in our lightning round. Tank versus Leo Santa Cruz. If it's on pay-per-view, which it most likely will it do over 250,000 buys?
Oh, wow. I'm going to go slightly under 250.
Okay.
It's a first-time pay-per-view for both guys. It's looking at it as like a mismatch. I think that Gervonta, they're doing it at 135. I don't know if he can even make that weight anymore, and it'll be Leo Santa Cruz going up. I don't know. It's a tough one. It's also going to be in the summer around a lot of pay-per-views. I'm going to go under 250.
I'm going to take the under as well. I think it's going to be well under, unfortunately, and the reasons are we just had a huge heavyweight matchup, right? And that did 800 to 850,000 buys is the numbers that were reported. That was 2 huge heavyweights undefeated with 2 marketing arms. This doesn't have that necessarily. It's a good boxing match, but not a necessarily good match to sell to casual sports fans. May or may not tune in for this, so I'm going to say well under.
I think a lot of people are going to stream it. A lot of piracy.
It's also this era, right? It's tough.
Rampant, and especially that time. Like they're saying they want to do that fight in around the summer or around that Memorial Day weekend. We're also going to see Lomachenko and Teofimo is supposed to be a pay-per-view. A lot of moving parts here in the boxing. Hopefully we get some more solid fight dates in the near future.
Our final topic here. So we just had the 5th anniversary of PBC. Let me ask you this, Dan, how healthy is the PBC brand, and what were the most memorable fights in the last 5 years for PBC?
Before I give my answer, I have to thank Al Heyman. I do cash checks from PBC, but it's not going to change my thoughts on what I'm about to say. I think that, no, it's all good. I think it's been all good. As long as you weren't part of that original Waddle and Reed investors who squandered the $500 million, I think you're fine. Who cares how that all played out? PBC came in 5 years ago, and who can forget? I was actually at the original press conference. I was interviewing Bob Costas and Al Michaels and Sugar Ray Leonard when they announced in the Rainbow Room at 30 Rock that the PBC was going to be formed and they were going to do fights. The first fight, the first main event was Keith Thurman, a guy we're going to have on in a little bit. I think he has benefited the most from this PBC formation. And you take a look at some of the most important fights and some of the best fights. I'll go with most important first. I think it is Porter versus Keith Thurman. It happened in 2016 in the summer. They put the fight on CBS, and it had a lot of expectations, and it delivered because it was, I think it was the fight of the year, or was in the discussion for fight of the year. That's, I think, the most important one. As for the best, a lot of names, a lot of fights being thrown my way, but a lot of the ones that the fans think over, at least on my Twitter account, is Cleverly versus Fonfara and Glowacki versus Huck. Two absolute slugfests.
So if you remember when PBC came out, right, it was a lot of fanfare and a lot of people who are like questioning, what is this exactly? They tried a lot of different things. They had high-level announcers, Marv Albert, Sugar Ray Leonard, a bunch of people. They used to paint each locker room in a certain color. They had the specific ring walks. And a lot of it was time buys, right? It was a different model. So you were wondering, how long can they last with this? But even though people called for the demise of PBC, they signed this big Fox deal. They're thriving now. They have some of the best fighters in the sport. And so they're doing big things. So people who have been calling for the demise of PBC, that may have been way too early. Now, for the most memorable, important fights, I'm going to go a little bit of curveball here. I'm going to say a fight that they were involved in, and that is Wilder Fury 2. And the reason I say that is because we've always said this in boxing. The fans win when promoters and networks are able to work together. And they were able to work together on this massive event. The fight delivered. We grabbed the attention of sports fans around the world, and I think that was a huge event, and hopefully we see more.
Yeah, it's definitely the most controversial organization of all. And you have guys on Twitter who, the Haymanites and all those Twitter accounts that go up and get taken down. People, they have their members that love the PBC and their detractors as well. So that's what boxing really is in a nutshell, is you have people who love it and you have people who hate it. But I'm going to read off some of the other big fights people are throwing away. David Cushing likes Pac versus Thurman.
Shout out to David Cushing.
My man Miguel and Amir Khan likes hard, but personal favorite is Thurman versus Porter. Yeah, a lot of the Huck versus Glowacki came over, but you know, it's been 5 years of the PBC, and I expect them not to go anywhere. They're getting the best ratings on Fox, and it's going to continue. Unfortunately, this segment has come to an end, Mr. Curran Bhatia.
Thanks so much for having me. Hopefully we can last as long as PBC does.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.